Sunim said, sometimes we don't know what's the better way to go with. And I think, of course, if your practice is mature and regardless your age, and if you have some strength in your gut, I think it wouldn't be really bother you to figure out what to do in any situation. I think my experience when I was younger, physically, there were more situation as just Pabil Sunim described, like he talked about this vaccination situation and also jogging, or like what should I do? People say all different things. As for myself, I was when I was younger, I think those situations occurred more often than now. One reason probably, please excuse me, there are older Sunims than myself physically here, but when you get older physically, there are much less chance or choice for you to go with, because your body just doesn't work. So you have to just to do that your body allow yourself to do. So which means I think I'm more relaxed, because you don't really have much chance to think about it. You will get only what your physical condition would let you do. So I think it's very natural when you are physically younger that there are more chance for you to struggle or deal with figuring out what to do in some relative situation. And some people say to you this, and some other people say to you that, and that makes you more confused. I think that's probably life. Recently I read an article about, maybe some of you also, this which called this James Webb telescope. So if you are interested in these space things, there is now, I think NASA, American, this, how do you call this? Everybody understands NASA, and some European Union who also involved in the project launched this very, very advanced technology, this telescope that can actually observe, watch like a couple of 100 times more than the current telescope NASA is using. Sometimes if you use your laptop, I like that space kind of this photo, that beautiful, these stars, the glow, these colors that is pictured by which called Hubble telescope. That's the current one that NASA is using for last about 30 years. And then now they just shoot this new one that is called the James Webb. And the capacity is way, way more advanced than this Hubble. So now it will probably do something more, some discovery about the sun. But I'm talking about this because I found one very interesting, is it physics or whatever, which can call it, that there's a Lagrange, I'm not sure if I pronounce it correctly, Lagrange point. It's a French, so who's French? Oh, there is one scientist, Lagrange, his name is yes. That's what I meant. but my way to pronounce was Lagrange, because he discovered that point in the space between the two object system, like for example, sun and the earth. Yeah, between there. And there is some point where the gravity from each object is almost same. It's very interesting physics and how do you say natural law. So I mean, human beings are scary. How did they find, especially French? So what people use that these satellites. If people want to keep it in the space, because they use it for years, since they actually shoot one satellite there, then it consume like a new huge fuel to keep it in the space, to just to keep it in the air. But if this Lagrange point, because the gravity from each two object system like Earth and Sun or Moon, the same, if you actually place it in this Lagrange point, it just stays by itself there. It still consumes very, very little fuel, but almost no fuel is used. So this James Webb, this telescope, is actually going to be placed at this Lagrange point, so that it can just stay by itself there without consuming a lot of fuel. It's not possible to actually, I heard, to keep it in the space if it has to consume the fuel to just stay in the air. So it's very interesting if the two objects has at some point the gravity is almost same, then not much fuel is necessary to keep something. By the way, because of my karma, I just right away thought about this middle way from Buddha's teaching. So like our relationship, or like as Pabil Sunim just talked about his few experience, there are always some situation that we have to deal, whether should I listen to this person's advice or that person's, or should I take the shot or not, the jab, because some people say this, some people say that, even doctors have different opinion. So what? Many situations are like that in our life. So one way to actually approach that deal taught by the Buddha is, I think, a middle way. Of course, many teachings are pointing the same thing, but there are like 84,000 different ways to talk about that. I think it's one of the core teaching word was middle way. So if you get middle way in a very confusing situation, because the people have all different opinion, even between Zen masters. Like one time, Taegwang Sunim told me, like his experience during the retreat. If he goes to the toilet during the retreat, and the toilet paper is, like sometimes this the toilet paper is just along the wall. Sometimes it's a different way, and he didn't like a certain way. So whenever he goes in, after he uses it, he turned it. And the next time he went to the toilet, somebody turned it back. And he didn't turn back. It keeps happening during the retreat. So people have so much like and dislike, different opinion. So, by the way, he became a Zen master. So it's very different. How can we go through it? Again, if you are physically, these days I'm really experiencing that what's the deal when your body is changing? Excuse me again. But anyway, not compliment. So because there are less choice for you to go with. But the best way, regardless our age, to deal with these issues and also go through in our whole life, I mean, in confusing situation, get this middle way. So what is the middle way? Which means if it's a relationship, well, for example, like between Pabilsin and myself or Hengjanim, well, the distance is different. So we may think, okay, the middle way between Hengjanim and myself is about 1 meter just from myself. Or for him and myself, maybe just here. So, okay, the middle way is always the same distance between the two objects. But actually, the universal law, I think it doesn't go like that always. Especially if the two objects are human beings. Because we have so interesting energy vibe, energy cycle. So it doesn't apply to always the same. Karma is different. If I try to apply what worked with this person to here, sometimes it doesn't work. So it's not just the physics. Physics is maybe even more simple and easy to apply. But between human beings, there are a lot of different things. And if you try to analyze it or understand, often it goes even worse. Because we think we understand this person. But middle way, actually, the true meaning of middle way that Buddha taught, I think it doesn't mean that. It's more like our don't know mind. So sometimes maybe him and myself, the middle way can be here, or maybe here. Not exactly physical distance in the middle. So it's very interesting. So we often talk about this don't know, or return to primary point. Then middle way just appear by itself. Because it's not about you analyze what kind of karmic relationship I have with this person, you will never get it. But if you just return to don't know, if that's very pure and genuine, you don't even really need to think about it. Well, sometimes you get in trouble, but then again return to don't know, then the trouble goes away. I think that's the true meaning of this middle way. So, just like the James Webb telescope, still human being can place the satellites in some other point using the fuel, but it takes a lot of fuel and effort, almost not possible. But if they find this Lagrange point, then they just place it, and then it will just stay there with very, very, very little fuel still possible. I think our relationship between human or anything actually, that's how actually wisely we can, I think, handle. So what actually Pabilsin shared is what's really happening in our daily life. So I just thought about this to share too. Is there any question? Yeah. Fight. Yeah, many actually different opinions these days. I I just shared actually right before this on the Zoom distant cafe thing, that the moment I visit my father just right before he passed away, because actually some of you heard that yesterday Thich Nhat Hanh, the great teacher, passed away, Plum Village, Namamitabor. So and then I also just thought about some two very strong experience with death in my life. So one was Musangsa passing away, and my father. So anyway, Musangsa you know a lot, but my father, when I visit, sometimes I shared that he was intensive care, and then his body was all like attached by these sensors, and he was wearing this oxygen mask, and his eyes were already unfocused. So when I approached him at the bed in the intensive care, it looks like he doesn't recognize that I was there, but I thought, just my instinct, that he actually knows that I came. So my all siblings came too, and then most of them are actually Christian. They go to church. So whenever we have a gathering, since I became monk, especially there are two sisters who always try to convert me still. And sometimes that we got some tension. And I was immature too, because it was earlier in my monastic life. So I like to talk what I thought right, always the Buddhist teaching, how great it is. And of course that is like oil to the fire when it's with two sisters, they get even stronger, and then Lord. They quote a lot of these things from the Bible things. And then, but when we gathered at my father's death, there is no such conflict. And I have told you that when there was last moment that the doctor demanded our family to give himself an answer, that to let him live or keep him with this or life-saving things, still with the pain. And then at the time, without a speech, it was so clear that my whole family wanted me to make a decision. It was so clear. And then I wasn't hesitating at all. So when this conflict thing is coming, it's about, again, I think our practice. It's if you start having your own opinion, I said opinion, then it will actually make the conflict even worse. But if you just, what's our practice during Kyeolje? Isn't it amazing that 3 months you have been doing the same thing every day? Same schedule? I think the power from the practice, if you had the right direction, the power is really strong. And then that works best when the life situation is most important. I mean, referring that what ordinary people talk about, like a death or some unexpected accident or some big events in life. The power from your practice, if you had this right direction in the practice, it doesn't matter how much you struggled during Kyeolje, physically or mentally, but if you had the direction and you kept trying, the power is, I think, immense. It's really strong. And then that is recognized when the big moment come. It looks like nothing, but I think that's my experience. So when you have a severe conflict, your practice will tell you. I mean, the situation will show you what the quality of your practice was. So be sincere. Be sincere. I mean, 3 months long 결제 every time, it can just go something like a nothing special. Yeah, it's nothing special. But it's like we say, when your donor works very well, that means in your life, correct situation, correct relationship, correct condition. So your donor has been in training in this 3 months 결제, and when it has to work function, it will just appear by itself. And the power is very strong. Maybe we don't realize that was from our practice or not, but it will just work. So again, this conflict, as you said, nowadays even more and more different opinion, and it goes extreme ways. And it's not very different basically from what Pabil Sunim shared, that sometimes he gets lost when he has a different opinion to himself. Then that's like conflict inside myself, right? So at that time, your practice will show you. I mean, the situation will show you what kind of practice you have been doing. So be sincere with your practice, when you are here. I don't mean that actually put a big pressure on yourself, like making you very rigid. I don't mean that. But I think it's great. We have this kind of system. We do 4 great bows and in the early morning and at the end of the practice, because that's our direction. It's like in the car, we put our destination in the GPS. If you only moment awake, then it will actually take you to the destination. So we put our destination in the at the beginning of our practice every morning. That's our direction, and at the end also. Then I think only your presence will be always helpful in any kind of conflict situation. It can be in your lay family, as I just shared my own, or it can be in your sangha. It can be in some like a social problem. So yeah, that's how I can